Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. The dress rehearsals of the Nrm Primaries take center stage, especially looking at the petitions that are taking center stage. Over 100 petitions, as has been made to the tribunal that closed yesterday. The biggest questions are, if this was the Kasiki, then what happens to the wedding that will come 2026 to see exactly what happens? The general elections that will come then, does the Nrm Primaries reflect exactly what could happen in our general elections? Things like bribery, voter intimidation, apathy of voters, but most especially a lot of monetization there. The other question that is put there is the litmus test of this yellow book. 18.5 million people were registered. 9.2 showed up, about 50% of them. The biggest question is, was this register saving or to the detriment of the party? Because in 2026, it didn't show up. In 2021, sorry, it didn't show up, but something happened. But it seems that every passing primary, it gets worse in terms of violence, in terms of deaths, people injured, and a do-or-die election that seems to say the flag bearer has an easy way out. Let's get to the panel that is with us here. On my immediate left, Professor Sssali, the director at the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at Makerere University. She's with us this evening. Good evening, Professor, and it's good to have you back.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers.
Should we say, welcome back from wherever you are.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you.
It's good. We shall not say where the professor was. Next to the professor.
Looks like you're not telling us.
No, I'm back, and that's what's important. I'm in the house.
Next to the professor is Honorable Martin Ojara Mapenduzi, incumbent Member of Parliament for Laibi Bandege, but also the flag bearer for NRM for Laibi Bandege. Good evening, sir. It's good to have you.
Good evening, my friend.
Is this the transformation, bow tie to yellow ties now?
Well, you can put it the way you want.
It's good to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Next is the Honorable Rosemary Namayanja, the Deputy Secretary General of the National Resistance Movement Secretariat. She's with us this evening. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good to have you.
Good evening to you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming back after a while.
True. Thank you for having me.
Lastly but not least, the Honorable Minister in charge of Works, the Honorable Musa Ecweru, is with us this evening. Good evening, sir, and it's good to have you.
My pleasure. Good evening, viewers, and I'm happy to be back in this powerful and mighty station, UBC.
How are you?
Injured a bit, but okay.
Where is the injury, sir? You look very healthy and well.
Now the face is deceptive. The face is very deceptive.
We'll get to that part in Amoria, what happened exactly there.
Yes.
But you can be part of the show. Join us on YouTube. Drop your comment there. Let us know what you think. Also, you can be on our X platform. We're streaming live on that space, and we're having this conversation live there. Get there, drop your comment, like exactly what we're discussing, but also the number 0709 60 25 92. And before we jump into this conversation, we have also been joined by the Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, representing the people of Butambala County, but also the Deputy President of Buganda region in the National Unity Platform. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, and it's a long time to see my sister Rosie Karachuna here, the newly NRM. So, over a year here, I'm only consoled by the professor in red.
I'm sure you do not know where she's coming from.
Honorable, have you had a break? I've seen your committee is still ongoing.
As a break in terms of
in terms of your committee, work for Parliament?
No, it is still doing work. We have a deadline to be done by September, so we are even very late.
Wow.
And no break, because for us this program of NRM is their business. It's not a parliamentary program. So it's an internal matter for NRM. It doesn't affect our work.
Okay, let's get into our conversation.
That's why he's also still a minister, irrespective of
what has happened.
The casualties.
We're going to come back to the conversation here, but we're going to discuss the aftermath of the primaries there, especially the petitions that went in, the tribunal that has been appointed by the president, about 25 people appointed. Yesterday was the last day that petitions were being put in, and more than 100 petitions have been put in there. And the biggest question is the 25-man panel. What are its terms of reference? And also, even tomorrow, the NRM will be having the primaries for LC5, division councillors. That 3-segment of lower authority leaders there will be happening tomorrow. And what does this mirror to them, even as we look at the general elections? Let's get into our conversation. Honorable Namayanja, let me come to you first and foremost. When you look at your primaries that happened last week on Thursday, what outlook do you give them?
First of all, I want to start with to respond to a comment that you made at the beginning, that every primaries we have had, it gets worse. I want to say that it's not the case. We have actually had bigger challenges in the other primaries. In 2015, we didn't perform the way we performed. In 2021 or 2020, we didn't even use the register.
Register?
That's not the register per se, but just answering what you said, we may not have reached 100%. Because there has never been an election which is 100%.
How would you grade it?
Yesterday I was talking to people and I was like, even in the developed countries, you have never seen a free and excellent election or free and good election. It is just fair. This is a contestation of power. It is an emotive exercise. And whereas we started with the lower levels and electing structures, but in our entire roadmap, this is the high-stake election which was conducted. And if I were to rate it, I would say we were above 70%.
70%?
Yes.
Let's get into some things that are really contentious before I come to Honorable Mapenduzi and the Honorable Minister there. 13 billion was spent to be able to get this register moving. Is that a fact?
13 billion?
13 billion shillings. For
I'm
your register.
not sure of the amount. But
you are the custodian of this register.
Yeah, I know I'm the custodian, but there is a treasury that handles that. And if I knew that we were going to talk about resources, certainly I would come with
It's not the resources, it's the yellow book.
Yeah, but it's not just the yellow book.
Did it fail?
It didn't fail. It didn't fail because there were like 3 things. I'll give you an example of the 2021 or 2020 primaries. There was even nothing like a register, to an extent that the national chairman had to say, let everyone who comes and says I'm Nrm be part of the voting process. And they indeed voted, and we had it very, very well. So since then, we took measures. First and foremost, that time we knew the problem was the register, and then the timelines. This time round, we started in 2024 to update our register. March, April 2024. In November, we did the same. We took it back again. We re-verified. On May 6th, when we were carrying out elections for party structures and LOC1 flag bearers, we were still testing this register. And we believe that by the time we went, because the bigger problems were not registered, I think there were, in those hotspots, I would call them hotspots, there are those hotspots that we had. There were issues that were criminal in nature, there were issues that were legal, and there were issues that were political. But besides that, in preparation for this exercise, we even increased the number of our commissioners, the members of the Electoral Commission. We had only 3 people. Today we had 7 because we realized the issues of monitoring. But at the same time, we are like, where somebody is aggrieved, there is a referral or appeal process. The tribunal, which consisted of 6 members the other time, and this time round we have put 28 members.
Let me ask you two straight questions so that I can have the experiences that happen. One, how you spent 13 billion on this register, moved it to become a digital register. I was following, especially as on ground, to see what was happening in Zimbabwe. 48 villages there, and the register was not even in half of them. So who do we hold accountable for that?
In half of them, meaning
half of
what?
the 48 villages, 20 received the register. The registrars did not know how to even interpret it, hence having children standing in those lines there. What I'm asking is, who do we hold accountable for the shortcomings? You have 11 ministers, 12 districts up to today we're not sure of their results. Who do we hold accountable
12
for this?
out of how many? Because what I want us to believe, something that other parties don't do, is carrying out a national election. That is first and foremost. Then two, the number of polling stations in NRM primaries are 72,000 polling stations. Each village is a polling station. So we also agree that monitoring, there is a monitoring challenge that we face. But as far as registers are concerned, we were sure that the only district that had not received registers was Oyam. And we made sure that before voting started, those registers were there. And then there was a register of Mitiana in Ibulela sub-county, which had gone in Mubende. And we made sure that before they come, and even before they were dispatched from Kampala, the registrars came at the center and verified. So if there are registers that did not reach, for instance, in Zimbabwe, then there could be a problem down there. But otherwise, it was only Oyam and a very few issues. In Nakaseke, there were 2 registers that had not, 2 villages, and by morning, they were there.
What are the terms of reference for the tribunal?
The tribunal, first and foremost, there are cases which the Electoral Commission itself handles. Just like in a general or national election, which is not a party election, there are issues that can be handled at the tally center or yes, at the tally center, or where they can even do recounting. So cases where there was alteration of results and that the candidates bring their declaration forms and they indicate that actually when you look at these declaration forms, there is a difference. The 2 agents, when you look at the declaration forms, and then if there is somebody who has declared a winner when other villages or polling stations had not submitted in, and they come in, there have been cases where they have actually disqualified or cancelled the results just at that level by the Electoral Commission. Now, once it goes beyond the Electoral Commission, the tribunal comes in because some of the challenges or some of the mistakes could have been done by the Electoral Commission, and therefore they cannot become the arbiter in this. So the tribunal comes in to look at on a case-by-case basis, look at the petitions. They were given 5 days within which to file. Then they are going to be given, the others are also going to be given 5 days within which to respond. And then the lawyers will look at the pleadings on either side. And we have even had cases where even if it requires going down on the ground, even to redo, if it is a sub-county or village, to redo voting there, it has been done before, and it's going to be done where it is necessary. Okay. And we have had cases, because you asked the terms of reference, still I wanted to give you what happened the other time. We had cases like Nyabushozi, where it was just, I think there were 3 or 6 villages, and they had to go there and verify, and the other one was not declared. In Mawogola North, we reached a level where there were 2 candidates, and during the arbitration process, we had to go and verify. By the time they were to complete the verification, it was time for national nominations, and as a party we agreed that we do not have a flag bearer there. And the same with the Sinjiro. So the terms of reference is to look at these petitions on a case-by-case basis and then investigate up to a certain level. And the beauty this time round is that we wanted to do these elections a bit earlier so that we can create some time. I remember one time we did primaries ending like they ended on the 17th, and that next week it was nominations for the general elections.
Okay.
But this time round, we've finished elections on the 17th of July, and we have some 2 months until we reach the national nominations, and it will help us to look at these issues critically.
Honorable Minister,
Yes.
your experience, I saw a lot of clips on your experience there, but share with us what happened in Namuria, and especially what challenges did you face?
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me and to join my sister. This is a comrade. I've been with her for a bit of time. I want to say that yes, the NRM is very strong and continues to be a party that is a force to reckon with in the country. And whatever has happened is not because of the weakness of the party. I think there are challenges within we, the individuals who manage the different sectors of the party. So let me take you to what happened in Namuria. In the whole of Eastern region, we have always known there are about 3 flashpoints whenever there is an election. It has been Katakwi, Town Council, Soroti City, and Bukedia. That's where even the security would always know that there must be some support there. Namuria all this time has never been a place where, in fact, when they send law enforcement, they just come and do their work normally, because we have always made it a point that if we are going through an election at whatever level, we may not agree. In fact, at the time of elections, it can really be tense, but it must observe some rules. And I think what I wanted to say here, maybe I should, but I can say it here. The resident district commissioners, for example, are supposed to, and are the chairpersons of the district security committees. So if you looked at all these areas where there has been chaos, if you see a very strong, objective resident district commissioner, then there is relative normalcy. I had another DC who I thought is sober, mature, and I think I have every reason to believe that he knew what he was doing. And he has been in the district for about 3 years, 4 years. But what happened was, when the Office of the President, the technical people, I'm now told, learned that Madam Babalanda was already also struggling in Buyende, they transferred him on Tuesday and asked him to report to his news station on Wednesday. Then they brought a new man on Wednesday, and he was supposed to take charge of the district on Thursday. On Wednesday, actually. So on Thursday is when the election was. Just imagine, that is the beginning of anarchy. The district security committee chair has been taken away 2 days to elections. I have asked Madam Babalanda, what happened? I've even put it in writing. And she tells me she's just hearing it for the first, that there was a reshuffle. The minister for presidency, responsible for transfers of RDCs, does not know that her staff has, I asked who could have transferred, because I was a resident commissioner for a number of years. Musa, I am told, used to scrutinize our names before the changes are made. And you know that, Namayanja can fit in Katakwi, Ecweru can fit in Kasese, Ogulu, something like that. I don't know whether that still happens. So that's what first to beginning with. So my district was poised for a bit of anarchy right from the day go. Now, when that happened, then the district internal security officer took charge, overpowered now everybody. And the character and person of the district internal security officer is not something I can discuss here on air, because I have shared it with his leaders. But the point is, he now took charge, knowing very well that the chairman has just arrived. So he took charge. And that's why you saw in many places children now lining up. The character of the person sometimes borders these officers who are transactional. If you give him something, then it is you who carries the day, something near that. But that's a matter that is being discussed with his leadership, so that So the district, for me, I had always known that after the campaign, the day before elections, I should just rest, because everything is going on well. Those who are supposed to do their work will do their work. but only to be called from everywhere. Mr. Minister, where are you? I'm home. Yeah, children, school children are lining here. I say, now I can tell the country, and I know many people are asking, how come Musa? In fact, somebody asked me, a person from a very high position in my party, how did you allow it to happen? What option did I have? If I ran there, then you would have seen a Kamuli, you would have seen a Zimbabwe, you would have. But I told my people, I will never do anything that can compromise order here.
So your petition is based on the children lining up?
The number of people who have voted in my district is twice, I'm told, the number that is in the yellow book. So where did you import these ones from? It is just children. If you see in some of the areas, I am told they would say, if they see a pregnant woman, they say 1, 2. So even the one in the stomach, it was taken to have voted. Yes, that's what exactly happened. You know, so it's so ugly. It is something that is embarrassing.
A human being.
You know, yes, it's a human being, but we are talking about So
voters.
We are supposed to have people. We are supposed to have people 18 years and above. But if you see people who are being counted, those children don't know why they are standing there. So that is the kind of situation that.
But Honorable Minister, one of the things that your party was thumb-chesting is having 20 million people on your register and 18 million that are able to vote. So was it differentiated which register was given out there?
No,
that's not on the basis of the register.
This is
criminality.
Yeah, this is
really.
crime.
Yes.
This is crime. The truth is like the Deputy Secretary General has said, some institutions of our government, and indeed some institutions of our party, have some defects.
Okay. Honorable, let me come back to you. Let me come to Honorable Kivumbi before I get to Honorable Mapenduzi.
Why?
Because I would like an independent.
I'm enjoying their movie.
After hearing,
you know, the Kivumbi is just dancing because it's like.
Professor has said that Honorable Kivumbi and her, they're independent. So let me start with the independence before I come to Honorable ojara Mapenduzi. Honorable Kivumbi, when you hear this, 13 billion spent on a register, look at what happened, especially claims of children, claims of violence, the amount of money spent. There was also a clip of an aspirant who pulled out a bundle and was giving it out on the door. Is this an election? Is it a selection? And what is exactly, what is it fulfilling?
But for me, the big story is not even what happened, is the reaction of our country and the citizens. It seems to be a normal thing. And we seem to be telling an evening drama, listening to my brother yeah, and my sister here. And the citizens seems like, what would you expect? That should alarm the country. The indifference. The people think, that's what it should be. Oh, that's what it is. That's how good NRM is. That's what it has become. And they are saying, the verdict there, that is who they are. Now, that should have alarmed the country. When they did it in the youth election, and similar things happened, and this time they were versing the opposition. No reaction. These good citizens here kept quiet. Said it's okay, because they were defeating the enemy. The enemy was the opposition. The so-called RDCs we are talking about, internal security, were actively, PSOs, DSOs, they were actively influencing elections. When we complained in the parliament, the role of the PSO in the electoral process, in the registration of voters. What's the role of a PSO? In the act, is not there. What is he doing? Everybody was like, it's okay. You people why are you complaining? So therefore, this is how far or how low we've come as a country. And for me, it's alarming that a party in power is the standard bearer. It sets the tone. It's the one that has a moral, not just a moral authority, has every obligation to ensure that the standards and the quality of the election meets the minimum standard of a free and fair election, which Namayanja said, elections everywhere are not saying they're excellent. It's a minimum standard of a free and fair election. So now that the party in power has mastered, I mean, it started slowly in Zimbabwe in elections, the military actively taking part, and everybody, it is happening to one such coup. And it's about him. Maybe he's indisciplined, he's not pure. So for me, is this now how far NRM as a party has come? I don't want to use the word rotten, but I would find it difficult to find another narrative. This is the level of the rot you are talking about. It's been happening and it's been growing. And when they were beating opposition people, there was silence and approval from these friends of mine. They are members of parliament. They're actually front ministers. When these things were happening, they are not allowing us to freely organize, associate, assemble. They were quiet. Now it has come to them, they are crying. So for me, the big story in the whole of this is I don't see the country reacting in such a level where they are universally saying this should not be happening in our country.
Who should be leading that?
I mean, when you pass around the street, they have already passed a verdict that as long as NRM is in power, that's what it will be. It will never organize a free and fair election, even internally in its own parties. This is the party that disqualifies people. I saw a Speaker of Parliament struggling to ensure she's unopposed, literally in a very dirty way, eliminating an opponent. And you are a Speaker of Parliament. You preside over our rules and procedure. You are literally the one who every day must be seen to be. And we are simply saying, I cannot be competed with. And you do and people were quiet. Some people suffered quietly. They're saying, you are so powerful that I've seen efforts to eliminate competitors to their chairman. So how do you compete with your chairman? So it's the DNA of something called the NRM. Use of force, corruption, bribery, intimidation. I call them the Holy Trinity that sustains the NRM. It is one, it is voter use of force, which is coercion, it is voter bribery, and it is vote rigging. It's in their DNA. Now, that's why you have a party that can, in a country like Uganda, where you have about ideal 100% registration of voters, should be about 20 million, and the party tells you have 19. This is the party. Let me give you something that will surprise you. This is the party.
They could say the same for your party.
This is the party.
That you're ring-fencing the position of the president of National Unity.
No.
Just
that's
like
another day. When you have our election, you'll come. This is the party that made every school a village in their register.
Every school?
Yes. These secondary schools in their register, in the NRM register, they are villages.
At least that I know it's not true.
No,
because if you don't know it again, don't say what you don't know.
I'm telling you, I've been around. I can tell you what happened in Butambala.
We do not create villages.
Can I tell you what happened in Butambala? I know Gombe Senior Secondary School in the NRM register is a village. Bulo is a village. Chibibi is a village.
We do not create villages. We go by the Electoral Commission.
I can bet you
and the Ministry of Local Government
schools
villages.
In their register are villages. And in one of the villages of the code school, one candidate got 600.
Okay.
So if you have a
That
party
is not true.
that I've told you, Rose, if you don't know, just call a returning officer of your officer.
Unless you are saying that people go and vote from that place.
No,
because it is a
no, it's
public
not,
place.
Now,
but as a party,
on the normal
can't
register,
be a
on the
village.
normal, I've told you, in a normal election, there is no polling station in that school. It's not even a village. But in
we
the
are not
NRM
even following the polling stations
yes.
of the national, of
you
the
are following
Independent Electoral
villages.
Commission. Yes, the
you are
village.
following villages.
And
so
we
I
don't,
know.
we
all
don't
secondary
create
schools
new
in my,
villages.
In my secondary school, they were meant to be villages. And they are villages.
Honorable Kivumbi, let me come back to you.
No.
Mapenduzi, let me bring you in.
No.
Laibi Bandege, your constituency.
It's
what was
not
your
true.
experience and how did it turn out?
Because
and,
how do
I
you
think
get
we
a
should say
register if
congratulations
you're not
now.
a village?
It is
Thank you very
villages
much.
by local government.
By local government.
Gentlemen and ladies, we're now with Honorable Mapenduzi.
We are in Lib.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sure you're aware that I joined the NRM not so long ago.
True.
A few months ago. In the Acholi tradition, when a visitor comes home, you don't send him to the garden immediately.
Nyerere said otherwise. You spend 3 days there, so you go and dig.
Well, yeah, 3 days.
These 3 days were not over.
You don't send a visitor. A visitor arrives in the night, and the next morning you are giving.
He can easily run away even.
You don't do it like that. But because this is a system with rules, I joined the NRM, and I knew that I would be subjected to these processes and accepted. And so it has been a very good learning experience for me. It has been a good learning opportunity. When I joined, the first thing I did was to understand the structures and the rules and all that, including how the registration processes took place, getting to understand who are the members of the party, getting to understand details about the yellow book, and indeed the first thing I saw was a bit of a challenge with how the registration took place in Gulo, and we discussed that. The number of people who wanted to get registered was more than those who got registered. When I look at the register, I realize in Gulu City, a total of 49,000 people got registered, when the Electoral Commission has a total of about 107,000 on registered voters. So the number, and many people raised that as a concern and said, look, we wanted to get registered, but looks like the registrars, the people who should have done, did not do a good job. But again, the party used the register, and I have no complaint on the register. The only challenge is that the register arrived late in the sense that I'm told it arrived in the night, and in the morning the registrars were running around to collect them, and they struggled to go to prepare. But all in all, the process went well. But what I will tell you, and that's where I agree to some extent with some of the things that were raised by the Honorable Minister. One is on how we play by the rules. I think the party needs to improve a lot in making sure that when we are having such processes, we should create environment that makes the people involved in the competition stick by the rule. I will give you an example. In Gulu City, Badege Laibe specifically, the exercise ceased to be a computation ceased to be an internal computation. Why? Because opposition MPs, just because I was in the opposition and I left the opposition, I think they got extremely offended. So they followed, and yes, they joined the campaigns, and and the media covered, and some party members also petitioned the NRM Electoral Commission. Honorable Dongauto, from all the way from Pade, for a week was busy campaigning in Badege Laibi against Mapenduzi. Honorable Gilbert Olanya, all the way from Amuro, was in Badege Laibi. One MP, Charles Onen, from another area. All of them were there. And they were having rallies. And the commission, the Electoral Commission, never took action, even when they were petitioned. I think that was unfortunate, because that ceased to be an internal exercise. But you see, because I knew how hard they were when I left the opposition and all that, at least on my part, I got to, I strictly followed what was required. So I had to avoid getting diverted. So there were incidences. For example, on the day of the election, people were ferried from goons, given alcohol and given money by these opposition MPs. People who came from, and they did not come to vote, because the registrars and were very strict. And we knew they were going to do that. So the security agencies did their best to deploy to make sure, but still they hired goons from, others came all the way from Amuro. By the way, even 2 days after, some young boys who came all the way from Kidum got stranded in Gulu, and they came to my home. They needed me to help them, and they were confessing. And why were they brought? To disrupt. Because when they got to know Mapenduzi was going to win, the whole thing was threaten the voters. In some places, the voters took off. And that's unfortunate. So,
Honorable, let me ask a question. The allegations about your opponent being arrested, Bosmik?
No one was arrested.
Allegations of intimidation by someone who was backing you. I can be clear, General Tema, supporting you.
Can I tell you something?
No, let me make these statements so that you can defend them.
Go ahead, sir.
The arrest of Bosmik that was supported by General Tema, the allegations of the army to be able to stifle and intimidate people in Laibi, around Teko area. Please elucidate on these things that were being allegations that have been thrown.
First, I will tell you that is a lie, a blatant lie. What happened? The goons and Gilbert Olanya, who is FDC, from Amuro, went to a polling station which is opposite the police barracks. There is a big playing field, and that area is called Kasubi Central. That is where they vote, that cell. The voters vote there. So it's opposite the barracks. And the army had no business. Actually, why would goons come and stone people? Stone the women and elderly people who are lining up there. What happened? Honorable Gilbert Olanya was there himself. They ferried goons to come and disorganize. So when the army saw that people were getting hurt, they were being stoned, and it was total chaos, the army came to rescue the situation.
How would they tell the difference?
Listen here. And they dispersed everybody. They dispersed everybody and said, we do not want lives to be lost here. So they told the party, reorganize yourself, put order, and do it. And the party took action, and there was order later, and the voting took place later. No interruption. Secondly, there was no arrest of any candidate. During tallying, and I can tell you this without any fear of contradiction, during tallying, when the voting was over, one candidate, Bosmik, the one you are talking about, went with his team, invaded the tally center. Before even the tallying was complete, invaded, and they created chaos. That's when the police came and told them to leave. No one was arrested. So that's the concoction. And I can tell you, and by the way, even at the time of the declaration, fortunately, there was a commissioner one of the commissioners from the Secretariat, from the Electoral Commission. One of the commissioners was there physically. And I can tell you there was no such stories as arrest.
My last question before I come to Professor.
And I have had lots of allegations against General Tema, which is unfortunate. It's total lie.
Why has the NRM degraded to such impunity of weapons, money, and bribery?
Well, I do not know whether you'd want me to answer that. I think the Deputy Secretary General has tried to answer.
But you are a member of this party.
Well, let me explain what I saw, my experience, and I've told you I've not been in this party for long. First, I am told generally this has been better than the previous one, just like she explained, because I'm told in the previous one there was no voter register, the yellow book, so everyone, including the opposition. And by the way,
they actually voted.
They voted
massively.
And in some places, the opposition would want to get a weaker candidate, just like they wanted to do in Badege Laibe. They would want to, and they were telling it out open. They said, we will have to defeat Mapenduzi so that in the final one, we can bring candidate A. And they were mentioning names, and they have said it openly. So the strategy is infiltrate, weaken the process, so they end up getting a weaker candidate, and we can defeat them later. Okay. All right? In some places it happened. So you may think this is just an exercise for NRM, but there is a lot of external interference and influences that come. And I think that is something the party also needs to learn. This is a learning process, and I'm sure in the next election the party will do better. But if you're talking about bribery, you're talking about use of weapons, I don't understand you, but the security agencies, the police and so on, have a duty, not just in the Nrm primaries.
Honorable, the guidelines that were given by Dr. Tango Doi were clear, especially in the areas that I've asked you about. All of them were flawed.
Well, please, you can have time with Dr. Tango Doi and talk about that, because I don't speak for him, but I'm trying to give you my own experience.
Let me bring in the professor.
Yes.
Professor, 11 ministers sent out, 12 districts, results not sure anywhere there. When you look at Toro and Rwenzori, out of the 21, 10 did not return. Come to a place like Ankolid, where they had 24. Of the 24, most of them did not return. When NRM talks about democracy as one of its pillars, was it put to test? Did it pass the test? What do you make of it?
Yes, thank you very much, Timothy. That's a very interesting question. If I'm to go straight to your question, I think it could be that actually democracy was put to the test.
Did it pass the test?
And I think it passed the test. Because, you see, you have the will of the people being tested and actually people communicating. And why do I say this? I happened to observe some elections. I do research projects in Rwanda, and the elections found me there. And like every anthropologist, I got interested in what was taking place there. And it was interesting to hear people communicate who they want, what they want, regardless of any other influences and inducements. I think this is the first time I've been very close to an NRM primary election, because normally they don't find me in the field and I don't pay attention. But for me, it was actually a clear demonstration of internal democratic processes. That you have a party, okay, it may be a ruling party and therefore has resources, that is putting its people through a test, and that people are vigilantly interested in the candidates. Okay, from where I was, that's where I observed. People are vigilantly interested in the candidates. They are attending the rallies, they are singing the songs, and they are making statements of whether if they are paid money or they are not paid money, they know who they are going to vote for, and actually they did that. Where I was, I think, since I was not part of the structure, I went to a polling station and I found the yellow book was there. What I observed is initially people had been all in where the thread was, but they were asked to step out by the police, and then their names were read, and they went inside, and then they started asking this kind of, I think the women voted first.
Yes.
Although the rain disrupted, because Chigezi rains heavily, so the rain rained for more than an hour, but still time was reclaimed. So they came back and lined for the woman again, and they were able to count. That happened with all the other candidates. So for me, I think it was a test of democracy. Even when it went to the declaration forms, of course, there were issues where I think people had not been guided so well on writing, because you could see cases where every candidate, there were attempts to have a candidate per declaration form. But even then, they were guided that the declaration form has to be all the candidates on one form, and that it has to be signed. And they made sure the agents came and signed these things. And actually, for me, contrary to having pistols and whatever on the polling station, it actually, people wanted a confirmation of what the GISO had entered on their tally to prove that what the EC had entered was there. And to the people, it was like, this is evidence that it will not change. If the EC's tally is per village and votes and the candidates is tallying with the GISO's tally, then it means they are at par. In some cases, you would observe what the EC, the registrar, tallied is also countersigned by the GISO. So for me, I saw it more like it's an accountability. It was like an accountability mechanism. And I think the challenge that I saw is when you have very far to reach areas and the EC has not provided transport, it becomes a challenge of how you expect. Because you see, elections and ballots are issues of interest. They are not just normal cargo that you're bringing and a register and empty ballots. Now you have people have communicated. The evidence is there. But this person with this evidence has not been directed on how to move them or doesn't have the facilitation. Does the person get on a border and ride for 3 hours with those things? Supposing they are bad people who want to. So that was seen as a challenge. But again, the community was able to organize themselves and find a way of delivering the things. And even finally, when it reached the district tally, you have every agent having a copy of the declaration form, and where there were contestations on the figures, you had this comparison between the tally sheet, the DR form, the person reading, the district registrar was reading vis-a-vis these others, and they would harmonize positions. So as I say, it was the first time for me to participate, not to participate, but observe such processes. And it was interesting how it went. But I also appreciate that different areas had different experiences. And from where I observed, there's no way a child would have gotten in there because the stakes were high. So there's no way a child would have gotten there. But of course, I think if you are to look at this as a kasiki for 2026 as the real wedding, the East will have to plan for how, you know, like how we do UNEB in hard-to-reach areas, you have for UNEB, these people, UNEB officials getting on boats and walking and the police escorting and bring back those results. But you see UNEB results are just UNEB results, PROE and the rest. But given the stakes in electoral results, I think that process of returning them for hard-to-reach areas has to be planned better. So you asked whether it was a democratic process. I think for me, I see it as a fair test of democracy, which is an internal democracy for the party. One, because of the level of interest and how it was conducted from where I saw it. And of course, there were allegations of vote bribery, and that there were allegations and reports that people had been paid in the night, but still, even people voted otherwise. So then you wonder whether actually that really held. There was no fight.
And that's why I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
You said people voted otherwise. What is, in 2011, 2016, Dr. Besigye, 2021, Honorable Kyagulanyi, that was the wave. People power, nope. What wave is this?
I think
Fortunately,
the wave
on the ground.
The wave is a focus on issues. You know, I know there's a time you asked whether the NRM and money. First of all, you have people on ground really have needs. It doesn't matter whether they're NRM or whichever party they are. They will always demand inducements from those who are aspiring, okay? But beyond that, then you have, and as I said, allegations, because I can't prove it. So if you have allegations of voter bribery, and then you're told candidate X bribed, but then still people voted, probably the wave then you're seeing is the fact that while people may take money, if at all it's true they took money, they still rise above that and vote for issues. That is one. But also the other thing, the wave we had been told, oh, this is a very, very Catholic area, and then this and then that. So the other wave people are talking about in that area is that how come a non-Catholic candidate won in a very strong Catholic stronghold? So then there you can also see and conclude that probably the wave there is the focus on issues. Maybe religion is not as strong as people had thought it was. Maybe it is, maybe it's not that strong. But we are yet to see what 2026 will have to deliver. But even as we say this and say the NRM has held these processes, we are waiting to see what is going to come from Honorable Kivumbi's camp. Will it be a national process? Will it be the party deciding on and allocating candidates to areas? Because you see, it cannot just be that we are discussing the NRM, we are discussing primaries as a holistic process in a democratic dispensation of national elections. So is it just that the NRM just wants to do primaries because it has the resources, or are primaries a good thing that all parties should conduct as a way of sieving those that they then present as competitive candidates for a national process? So I think for the debate to be conclusive, it has to go that far. And as you take the debate that far, then you may have to look at things like what resources, for example, would NUP have to conduct a national process? Would DP have, would FDC have to conduct a national process? And would it be holistic? And if they don't have the resources, then does it justify them identifying in Kavulehu or wherever the other parties sit, or Najanankombi or wherever, I don't know where they sit these days, deciding who the candidates are and allocating them for you? So the processes have to be scrutinized for all the parties involved. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me read some feedback that has come through here. Thank you, Timothy, for the program. This is Sam Jackson from Hoima. The NRM primaries are clearly a signal for what is likely to happen in 2026. Remember, by the time 2026, NRM will use the national machinery against opposition in its favor. The army, the police, prisons, SFC will all be against opposition. So what do we expect? More deaths, more beatings, more corruption, to mention just a few. Okay, thank you, Sam. Good evening, Timothy. This is Bua. There is no important discussion on the NRM primaries that can interest a common Ugandan, because for the political matters of Uganda to make sense to a common Ugandan, the presidential seat is the only sensitive big fish urgently being sought to be of attention. But looking at the country, the national cake is distribution is done by a state system that has become a presidential matter. So how do those people like Honorable Musa and Honorable Mapenduzi passing? It's not just a concern. We are 100% sure they're just seeking jobs, okay? Interesting comment. You cannot have democracy when you start with violence. The NRM came after rebelling against the UPC government. How do you expect anything good to come out of them? They are still using the gun to govern us. Teacher Asimwe Julius there, okay? Please ask the Honorable Minister that what he hasn't done in the terms both being a member of parliament and a minister, what can he do when he's not in office? They think there is no one else that can do this job apart from him. Isn't this being selfish? I'm watching from Canada. Okay, you leave no name. Thank you very much. Ambrose says, I'm an NRM supporter, but its rule is declining, and I'm coming to an end with the evidence of the primaries. This is Anyesije Ambrose from Isinjiro. Thank you. Alan writes quite a lengthy one, but I'll pick a few things. He's from Chihumuro, and he says, Chihumuro from Rampara. He says, as we speak now, we do not have a woman MP for our district. Anne Kansime won. The state machinery announced Moli Asimwe. RDC has also been transferred. The registrar has been arrested. Tomorrow we have new elections. Who will handle them? Well, tell the public that General Mohozi, the son, has joined the army. General Mohozi's son has joined the army. Okay? Finally, this is Alan, who goes on to say, okay, I've seen that. Lastly, Abraham Wagulo from Bulambuli says, the Honorable Minister is true. Is it true that you lost? And can you accept defeat? And we move on from this. Okay. Thank you very much for those messages. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, We'll be looking at this tribunal, but also, in hindsight, what the general elections and the president's letters say about the elections. This and more after this break.
Abeka bana tuzi. Awarunji. Nafe tujja.
Oh. Bami kwani? Anya inakuchange ono.
Uncle, you can just use your phone.
Eh, tuina momo.
Va ku mwana kununya change.
Nayanziza nnyo.
Nange kwepera.
Yes, sir.
Zo ziri mmeka?
Jire satu kitundu.
Satu kitundu.
Yes, sir.
Nayo. Sente ngazinzu gweddeko.
But uncle, you can't get from your phone.
Just keep on playing your bodies. What if you move me? Mweba rutegeka. Nze no bora bankoye. Va ku machandi mu shopping. Juma jangu yambe ku munno mutikule ebintu. Muri mutya?
Uncle, you're suffering again. Can you put it on your phone and make money?
Bye-bye. Musuri domtuma. Undazo kuagara. Naye. Thanks for coming. This, empombo wazichari wawo. Jajja mwongere ko. Bayagala nyo rombo rw'ekinyego.
Kandete kando.
Towetaaga kutambula. Gwe ne bw'otuula.
Tubeere mu nzikiza.
Senga n'atuma olina okugumiikiriza.
Uniquely ours. Explore Uganda.
You thought that on your wallet. Bobby, again! What's the drama?
Drama? Colleagues, elections for special interest groups are calling. SIGs, elections, youth, PWDs, elderly. It's time to vote for our leaders, June through August. From village to parish to district to nationals, youth, PWDs, elderly. It's time, go vote your leaders. No! Elections are supposed to be peaceful. Easy vote, okay?
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities. It's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year. Your vote, your voice. My vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. I'm joined by Professor Sssali, Honorable Ojara Martin Mapenduzi, Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi. I'm also joined by the Deputy Secretary General of the NRM, Honorable Rosemary Namayanja, and the Honorable Minister in charge of Works, Honorable Musa Ecweru. We're discussing the aftermath of the NRM elections, the primaries to be exact, for the direct but also the woman MP there. 335 places for direct MPs and 146 for the woman MP. And numerous, over 100 petitions being sent to the Secretariat, which closed yesterday, and they have 5 days to put verdict to that. Let me come back to the Honorable Namayanja. Honorable Namayanja, you've given us the TROs, the terms of reference for this tribunal. I also know that the guidelines that were given by Dr. Tango Doi is that there was going to be a consent form that members would not run as independents, but also two, if there is no dispute resolution, where is it escalated to if the tribunal fails?
First of all, again, when you talk about the number of petitions, I just want to give an example. In the last elections, for the national elections, there were over 124 petitions. And when you talk about the over 100 petitions in the NRM, we have constituencies where there were 5 candidates or 4 candidates, 1-1, and other 3 petitioned.
But what's
so
the
even
number?
when there are these petitions, I want to say, first and foremost, why are we having this nature of elections? Why are we having an election instead of a selection? The rationale is to avoid imposing candidates onto the electorate. We want whoever contests to, actually even the national chairman has no role in determining who the flag bearer of a constituency will be, or even a sub-county or chairman LOC1. Our constitution is to the effect that the members of that electoral area, the members of NRM, determine who should hold their flag. And when I say that this has been better than what we had before, I want us to first of all look at a situation where we started with electoral college. I contested in Nakaseke district, and the electoral college was 3,000 people for woman MP in 2005. 3,000 people. If you are talking about bribery, anybody would just decide to pay the 3,000. And so the reason we moved to adult suffrage within the party membership is to avoid use of money. Because even if somebody gave 10,000 or 50,000, still people would buy the entire electoral college. So we said, let's do it adult suffrage. And when we did it in 2011, it was worse, because even when you remember situations where somebody had already dispatched teams, you have already had agents everywhere, you have even paid their remuneration, and then at around midday, you hear on radio or anywhere a message is sent that that election has been cancelled. Midway, on the last deduction, not even midway, on the day of voting, elections were being cancelled in many parts of the country. So then we had the issue of 2020, when the registers were not very, very solid, and it led, and I want to agree with Honorable Mapenduzi, it led to, at that time it was even worse, because there was no register to talk about. And when the position came that let whoever says his NRM comes and votes, what you would call weak candidates were largely voted in opposition strongholds, because they were like, we want these weak candidates who we can easily defeat. But this time round, for a person like Honorable Mapenduzi, who comes towards the primaries and says the register was okay, like I said, it may not be 100%, but at least there was a process. And there were many, like he said, who wanted to be registered. And we said, no, the period, we have reached a cutoff point, we shall not register eternally. Okay. Now, the issue of rules, the regulations you talked about, if they were not there, then one would say that the intention of the party was not to have a clean election. But I want to reiterate that, yes, there are these cases. And you talked about 12 districts, for instance, out of 140-something districts. So meaning largely, what is not talked about are those many cases where we had genuine elections taking place, but that these ones, and for us, we are happy that we are in a digital world. Cases like what Honorable Ecweru brought out, cases where we visibly saw people because of the vigilance, and that there are videos, these are going even to aid the tribunal. When somebody brings and says, and they were counting, as they are counting, somebody says 12, 30, 14, up to the end. So this is going to help us. And that is why in some cases where it has been very blatant, some people, are registrars, have been arrested. But that we believe that a lot will be guided by the evidence that will be brought to the tribunal. They will do their work, and then we shall take it from there. But otherwise, the reason why we believe we do not want a selection is that, one, there are many members in the constituency, and it is the reason, by the way, Timothy, why NRM wins a majority when it comes to national elections. Because these elections in primaries is kind of, it gives you this time. Those members of ours have gone through these 2 weeks, because the campaign was 2 weeks, but they have been running and moving around, traversing the constituencies. It helps them to build on when the national elections come. And it means that if 25,000 voters or members of NRM voted for a candidate, he or she is not starting from scratch. He will just start with that.
First of all, you haven't mentioned about the consent form to not run as independents. That's one. Two.
That is the position. But
so no one is going to run as an independent?
That is what we agreed upon, that, and there are some who actually chose not to contest in the primaries. And it is desirable that they do not run as independents. And that's why we want the tribunal to be free and fair. That's why we increased the period. We made sure we had primaries quite early, so that we have 2 months before the national elections.
Okay.
So that even if the tribunal says we want to repeat this election, we still have time to repeat that election.
Honorable, 2 questions about the tribunal. One, this tribunal, if it fails to resolve a petition, say, Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi and myself, where is the next step? 2, why are these tribunals not at the district and the sub-counties where these issues really happened?
They will have to go to those places, but I want you to figure out a situation where you have, because an MP and LOC5, these are high-stake elections, and you want a chairman of a sub-county of NRM to determine a case between this MP. In some cases, you have 2 MPs contesting. For instance, one has been a youth MP, and this time round is coming as a constituency woman MP. And then you are saying that the cases will be adjudicated upon by the local levels. We raise the bar a little higher so that there is that level of confidence and the respectability and everything that comes with the national election. Otherwise, for the lower local level positions, they are handled at that level. And that's why even the nominations are done at national level.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, a straight question. If the petition doesn't go through, will you run as an independent or will you concede?
Let's reach that bridge and cross it.
Like the one of Karuma?
In 2021, my senior sister, Major retired Jessica Lupo, was cheated. In one of the sub-counties called Okore in Katakwi, a sub-county newly created after the pacification of the Teso Karamoja area, people were just beginning to return to that area. About 600 people are believed to have voted in that sub-county. 600 or 700. But they added 2 3 zeros so that Jessica lost in that by 7,000. The present vice president. She raised the matter and decided to run independent, but strongly NRM leaning. She's my vice president now. Don't rule out anything. Don't rule in anything yet.
So the consent form not to have independence is null and void?
It's not null and void. It is not a legally binding thing. It was a gentleman ladies understanding.
That's your reading of the situation?
No, that's the reality. I've given you an example of my sister, the vice president of the country, is a vice president as an independent NRM leading member of parliament. What is going to happen to Timothy, and I've told the Deputy Secretary General, from what I know, the tribunal is exactly, and we are very happy that actually the president put it into place. But between now and the time of nomination, which is about, is it?
About
a month or so from now, you can't have a rerun and then prepare for the general election. You people who have not tried elections, you don't know how rigorous it is. Professor, you need to, I'll take you to Bulambuli one of these days and just say, run for this. It is so rigorous that by the time you are done, you feel like you really need a break. Now to say you're going to have a rerun in Butambala, even if it means for three weeks again, and then prepare to be nominated for the general election is very stressful. So what is likely to happen, the Deputy Secretary General has told you, when some officers saw that this was coming, most of our colleagues, I could give you about 4 or 5 members of parliament I know, very strong, but they said we are not going to participate, we are coming as independents. Can you imagine? Very strong NRM. Now, what is going to happen, given what has the evidence, many people saw, because there are districts where people are saying, is it true that this member of parliament has lost? Because some people casually say, maybe you are not on the ground. Let me tell you, Timothy, briefly. I can proudly tell you, if there is something that I have done for Muria, and they are listening, is to bring into the network what we call community access roads. Not done by the center, not done by the district, not done by the sub-county, but done by Musa Ecweru to pay for excavators to open swamps. You know, Teso is characterized by these wetlands everywhere. So that people can cross. So the population under there is very excited about the ability now for women to cross from this health center, from this village to the health center. They are very, very excited. So if you ask somebody casually says, oh, you know, maybe somebody was not on the ground, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Honorable, let me put a question to you. When I was following the elections, especially in the east, let's be specific, Busoga region, the power centers there, both the Right Honorable Anita Among and the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, the contestation in the eastern region, won't this tear apart both the party and the people of the east?
No, we cannot. For as long as, let me say this again. I think I remember saying it in one of the television programs. Was it this one or some, the NBS? President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the chairman of the party and the president now, is a very strong pillar and a cement that binds us. And we pray for his life for some time. And the only problem is if he decided to step aside with that kind of environment that you're describing, we can easily get into problems. Because I think individuals have built certain power bases and marshaled some resources that they can deploy around to undermine areas and people who may not have the kind of muscle. And certainly the population is watching, unfortunately. So that's a problem. So, but for as long as Musa is there, we will continue remaining and will be strong as a party. Maybe if Musa decides to step aside, and you leave me alone with Mapenduzi and Mama Namayanja, that's where there will be a problem. So what this tell you really
what you're saying, Honorable Minister, the dependence of the NRM is the president. Without him,
for now, yes, I can say that.
Without him, there's nothing.
For now, yes, and this has
the structures.
The structures are very weak.
Thank you for being very blunt. Let me come to Honorable Kivumbi. Honorable Kivumbi, for me it's two questions for you. First of all, I saw you smiling when Honorable Namayanja was speaking. You are also looking at Honorable Ecweru.
Kivumbi is going to have a good sleep today.
Honorable Kivumbi, for you, the question I would like to put to you are the 3 letters by the president. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but they're really the last two, the one of yesterday and the day before, that really catch me. The one he writes and greets Nrm Primaries and talks about 50% of the 18 million that showed up to vote. He also speaks about the 3 issues that were there: altering results, tampering with the register, using violence. He talks about the politics and the law in this one. He continues to talk about soldiers and some goons being there. But the one that caught me was the one yesterday. Before even the tribunal began, the president says ISO and CID have already helped to arrest the criminals. So generally, it seems there's already a report before the tribunal does work. Please decipher these letters for us. I like also what he calls himself in these letters, Sabalwanyi, not the chairman.
First of all, I'm not a frequent reader.
I can pass this one on to you.
No, of letters of the president. Because I'm on a national TV. Sometimes I don't take them serious. I can tell you. They are meant for particular audiences, not me. And those audiences have interest in them. So they don't speak to me. But fundamental issues arise. One, I will speak about the general politics of a country. First of all, the president, for all the years I've known him, has actively played a key role in monetizing politics. Because he enjoys the treasury. Even when he has been on these tours, he says, you have given you money, please pay. You have given you money, please pay. You have given you money, please pay. That's why he enjoys a 1 trillion expenditure on our national budget. And that's why he's the first consumer of every supplementary, which distorts the budget. So when you look at where did the rain begin to beat us, and who brought the rain, he's the real man. 2, for every election, he will speak about the historical role of the army and the UPDF and the NRA and how critical it is in determining the leadership of a country. So you say, who introduced the violence and the military? It is him. Now, when you come to a party called NRM, even when they had the semblance of internal democracy, in electing a leadership of the party, the moment there was the Secretary General and whoever, that's why Namayanja here, all the spaces internally were closed. These are now appointees.
Which spaces?
You know, before some time back, the Secretary General, the National Treasurer, they were a product of a National Delegates Conference. The moment a Secretary General threatened to compete with the chairman, 2016, that position became
appointee.
An appointee through a sponsored delegates. So therefore, those of us who watch NRM and now the outcome, it has been rotting, starting from the head down.
I'm not sure about that.
Now, I witnessed a professor, and if you see kids lining up to vote, you are doing two things that are immoral. One, you are destroying the future of this country by introducing a fraud.
We have said we condemn.
By allowing a fraud.
We condemn that.
By allowing a fraud to really be part of an internal process. Really, this whole thing, if the party, when look at it holistically, the whole thing, if the president wanted to, was there to call, should have said, no, we repeat the entire process. If we really wanted to mean well, you saw in Zimbabwe, before election, they were trying to fix the results. Other candidates that felt like this is too dirty were saying, I don't want to be part of it. I'm aware of a minister in Kalungu, a state minister, who opted out of a party primary and said, no, I will straight away run as an independent. Aisha Sechindi. She saw it coming and said, a state minister giving a vote of no confidence, an internal process of a party where she belongs to, and the cabinet minister. I've seen the language, body language of another minister here who is really also saying, to hell with your internal process, I'm going to run as independent.
It is difficult to tell my body language.
No, I saw the body language before.
Namayanja is the one who knows me best. How can Kivumbi?
No, you can deny that you won't run. I know, don't put that question to him. to say, but reading his body language, a cabinet minister saying to hell with the internal process of the party, it's fraud, it's illegal, and he's condemning it. Now, if ministers are condemning a process, then that process is below zero. So I'm used to call it, it's a minus. You can't score it even a zero. She was scoring 70%.
And I really stand by it.
The latest one would score you a minus, so you don't even qualify for zero. That's a minus. That's a minus. So you are speaking for a discredited process. Now, denounced by executive members of government. Now, if you are to some are even saying, I want to participate. Those who are participating are saying it was fraud. I'll run it again. I'll run independent. Two, key members of a political party, from the word go, opting to say that process is very bad. I will not participate in it. I'll run as an independent. You have a problem. A key member of a party saying, wait a minute, that process of ours, I'm a member of NRM, I will not participate in your process, I'll run as an independent, I will associate with you later. That speaks. So that's, and you are a party in government, and you are only holding, and the ministers had the courtesy to say, this party is no more. The only glue is around an individual, and can even say, the moment that man is gone, we don't know what will happen. Now, and it's the senior cadre, not an ordinary cadre. This Ecweru here is not an ordinary cadre. He's actually a fighter. He's saying, wait a minute, our party is dead. The only thing, the oxygen on it is by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. The moment you switch off, so the party is in ICU. And the only thing that is sustaining it there is Bwana Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, his army, his money, and his incumbency factor. So you are speaking about a dead party for all intent and purposes. But because it is in power, the Museveni is in power, it has a bit of, it is staggering. But for all intent, and it's being denounced by its own people. Therefore, for me, my take on it, and it poses a danger, because this NRM, if it disintegrates, it becomes a security problem. To what extent have we entered now where NRM is a threat to the stability and the peace of a country? If it is hanging on Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is 80, then you are speaking to a language where the peace and stability of this country is at stake because of a state party that has marshaled others and is not being run effectively. You'd have a state party to be run effectively and firmly and efficiently, but there's a lot of, and then the incentives are there by the politics of the chairman. If somebody who defied you, you made that person a vice president, who defied who defied the party process, denounced it, and ran as an independent, you reward that person. You are exactly encouraging that behavior. So look at that opportunistic tendencies. Two.
Is that called defiance?
Yes. Somebody says, this party here, you've done wrong, I've defined you. The next day you appoint that person, your deputy. So you are encouraging more of that behavior. So who has encouraged? That's what I'm saying. Let us examine the person of the chairman of this party, whether, first of all, with keen interest that it is more or less a state party on which we pledge our peace and stability as a country. Very fragile, with the strong link in the army, because the fracture in the politics can easily go and descend onto the army. And you are even now plugging the army, deep generals, deep into the politics of your party. So, see the danger for which a maladministration, an incompetent chairman, an incompetent leadership of the party is causing to a country.
Honorable, before
and it's an 80-year-old
before
fellow.
I get to Honorable Mapenduzi, when you look at the NRM primaries and you look at 2026 general elections, where you will be a player and all these parties are in, how do you see it playing out? You are now Honorable, I'm still with you, Honorable Kivumbi.
Yeah, which one?
When you see the NRM primaries and look at the general elections that are coming in 2026, what reflections do you get of it?
Of course.
Do you get concerns?
That's why we've called it a protest vote. All of these are now protesting. We have now many people. Our sample space is now very big. Ecweru is now going to be part of that.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be part of the protest. That's why for us we have straight away said, this is not a free and fair election. We are going for a protest vote.
Okay.
So it clarifies what we have termed as NOPA said, please are the country. This is Mountain Elgon. We are going to climb it. So we need special gears to climb Mountain Elgon. But the question is, it shouldn't be that. For us, our big question that it shouldn't take that. These abnormalities are not okay. Why should people beat each other? People die because one wants to be elected. Why should? I was in UK to observe an election. The presiding officer would sleep with a box with all the electoral material in her home, drive them in the morning in the car, bring them to a polling station, and they vote. The results, she puts the results in her car, takes them, for them they still use hands it's not computerized. They still count one by one. And she told us no citizen in UK can afford to vote twice. None. Where the integrity? No registrar, no presiding officer will falsify a declaration form. Which integrity? Which citizen will do that? Now, Here we're all fake fellows. We're a nation of fake fellows. Everyone, including, I don't want to rule out myself, including everybody who gets an opportunity to falsify a declaration of will do so without feeling guilt. Okay. So what kind of country do we have?
Honorable Mapenduzi, just your primaries. Unfortunately, we can't get the numbers of amounts of money spent. But we have videos of members of parliament, either aspirants, sorry, giving out money at the gates, having 5,000 notes, allegations of 100,000, allegations of 300,000, the commercialization of our politics. The last report I looked at said to become a member of parliament, it's between 500 and 1 billion shillings. How do we nip the commercialization of this politics to get it to the real issues that are paining Ugandans? Do we need a law?
First, I will not speak for such kind of people. If there were people you saw were distributing money and all that, I don't have that kind of money. But I don't want to rule out. I have interacted with some of my colleagues, and when you hear the kind of money they talk about, you wonder whether this is a campaign or something else. So it is true that our politics has been highly commercialized, and there is need to deal with that. In many countries, they create very strong systems that end up auditing every candidate. In Uganda, you don't do that. In some countries, how much you spend is very strictly audited, and when they don't find clear records, you get prosecuted. It's important that in Uganda we need to have that, where strong systems and strong measures are put, so that you cannot avoid spending money in an election, because there are things that you need to have. For example, you are required to have posters. Our kind of, in other countries, you don't have the kind of rallies we have. I just like my senior brother, Honorable Kivumbi, put it. I have been in the UK. I took part in one of the elections. I was invited by the Conservative Party some times back, and I took part in leaflet droppings and vote canvassing and going to door to door. They don't have the kind of rallies we have, but here in Uganda, big rallies, you mount public address system, so there are a lot of things that require resources, but it shouldn't be for buying votes for the things that are not ethically correct. So I agree with you that we need to have strong laws that will deal with such kind of practices, because it has, and by the way, it is now not being, it's no longer being driven by the candidates. It's, we were having a chat with my sister professor here. The society,
expects money.
The expectation we have from the society, as this is something we need to deal with, because if we don't, then someday somebody will not do anything. They wait for election day, people line up, give money, and that is it. And that ceases to be leadership or politics in its...
Could it be because the people don't see their members of parliament except at weddings, funerals, and the promises that you have made really... No.
But by the way, it's there are many things now. I think there is need to really have deeper reflection and begin to realign some of the things. And I'm told this happened even in the previous government, not only in this government. In the previous government, I'm told violence, you belong to a political party, you don't cross the line, along a religious line and all that. So it keeps on graduating, and we need to really we need to pick a lot of interest as a country. And this has nothing to do with NRM. It's general. even in the opposition, my brother Kivumbi knows this. When I was in FDC, I remember the election we had when Honorable Amuriat got elected, when Honorable Amuriat competed with General Muntu, Mugisha Muntu. I remember that evening, I was at Nambole as the delegate. The time of counting, somebody maliciously put off power from Nambole. The place was dark, and what happened within 15 minutes was a nightmare. So it's not just NRM only. It's even in NUP, I'm sure. You have had cases where people are saying, oh, they have already unpicked somebody. They have already done this. I had in the most recent by-election that was conducted here in Kampala, Kawempe North, where some NUP candidates were saying they had to pay so much money to gain favors or endorsement. So it's not just about one political party. It's something that we need to bother about as a country. We need to take seriously.
How do we put hygiene to our politics?
Well,
is it possible, or we are...
It is, well, we don't need to lose hope. It is possible. It is possible. We need to start...
Who does it?
Well, there are different stakeholders. For example, in the next election, the general election that we have the Electoral Commission. Okay, the Electoral Commission needs to set the standard, and they need to make sure the rules are followed. And the moment you begin to deal with those who go against the rule, you know, precisely. For example, if a candidate begins to blackmail using hate speeches and so on, remove that candidate before election. Disqualify them. You do 1, 2, 3, people will start to get online. People who bribe, you get details like you are talking about somebody giving money in lines, prosecute them. You do 1, 2, 3, people will be. So there are things we can do. I think we need to stop lamenting. We take, and you know, Ugandans, you don't only need to talk. When you act, people begin to understand you better. So it's possible. We don't need to lose hope. And by the way, the moment we give up, then we kill our own country.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, I agree with you, because when the EPS was here, that day, 30 kilometers was a must. Professor, you mentioned something about religion. There's also tribal sentiments. There are also power centers. When you look at Tororo, when you look at the eastern region, the people are aligning not for issues, but individuals. Honorable Kivumbi was really talking about what the Honorable Minister mentioned. Are we regressing as a country back to where we were? Politics of identity, politics of religion, and why are we regressing?
Yeah, thank you, Timothy. I wouldn't actually call it regressing, but I'll document it as the different motions a country goes through. As I told you, I was researching in Rwanda East, but it's not the first time I've done research processes that track electoral processes. Because for starters, my first degree is political science. So I have always tracked this. I started tracking this in '98, but that was largely in Kenya during the time that, I think it was Kibaki to '98. And at that time we thought actually Kenya was funny, because they used to talk about the standing fee, the listening fee, and all these kinds of fees to be at a rally. And fast forward, okay, it has now caught up with us. I did the same research 2016, but by then we were looking at the gender portrayal in the discourse of elections. And by that time, you know, you'd go at a rally, you listen to what the candidate is saying, but we're largely following the presidential. And of course, the issues were around health, they were around development, were around all that kind of thing. In 2021, I did the same kind of research, again tracking the rallies of presidential candidates and what actually they were saying, wherever they were saying. And that time the issue was around identity. So the last election really had identity politics around the youth, particularly driven partly by the arrival of NUP, but also around the issue of land and tribe, a little bit around religion. So right now the presidentials haven't started. So we're also going to track them. But right now what we are doing is tracking what are the speeches and the things being said at rallies for Rwanda West, for Rwanda, but particularly I went to Rwanda West, Bunyangabu, it's going to be Bujiri, it's going to be Bulambul, it's going to be Otuke. So we are covering West, East, North, and of course Central. So the level of interest at when you're tracking electoral processes is, first of all, you're looking at the issues that are coming up. You're looking at the discourse in which they are being coined, which candidate is saying what is the reaction of the people. So I think for me, from what I've observed from Rwanda, I wouldn't, and I'm yet to go to the other 6 districts, I wouldn't really say people are regressing. Of course, identity, you can never take identity from a people because that is how people identify themselves. The problem is when identity politics covers and supersedes what the issues are. And what I saw this time is, in spite of having been told, or in that place religion is very much, or in that place money is going to be much, and whatever, people still voted otherwise, okay? So we are yet to compare research teams for people who were elsewhere, but it is largely going to be a national process, and also see what the national leaders are going to portray. We don't yet have who the presidential candidates are going to be, but they're going to be a serious subject of analysis and interrogation at their rallies. What are they saying? How are people right? I think it is wrong for us to sit here and imagine that, oh, I mean, when you say identity is a problem, are we regressing? On what benchmark are you measuring the country? I think it's very important that you look at this country holistically and according to the context, time and context, what is happening. Personally, I wouldn't actually look at it as regression. I look at it as the motions a society is going through at the time it's going to go through. We can analyze however much we want, but you cannot cheat society. If people on the ground have not had enough socioeconomic transformation and they think that you should give them something before they give you the vote, however much legislation you're going to do about that, they will do it regardless of whatever political party there is in place. And by the way, it is not only in politics that people are given financial inducements to attend meetings. We've seen that occur with the researchers, of course there's the whole aspect of neoliberalism and commoditization of processes. If people have a training program for farmers, they pay them to come for the training program, even when that training program is to benefit farmers. If people have a health sensitization, they pay those who they want to attend that health sensitization. Or like when the first big studies came in for HIV, for UNICEF, right from the 90s, people have always been paid to participate in processes where ideally they are the beneficiaries. And we have always raised this question as researchers. One, it makes research very expensive, but also two, it distorts a relationship because people now believe, you know, it is a way of coercion without really being coercion, in that people are being financially induced to participate in processes. So then later on at the chain end, when you come with an electoral process, people are not going to say now this is the election, therefore it's different because people expect. People are not making those differences. They know that whoever gets them into a process, either finances them transport, then gives them refreshments, then gives them all those things. So you have all those things. So I think when we're analyzing human behavior or political behavior of people in these communities, it is a little bit narrow to only look at the political process. Let us look at what has been happening in those societies, not just by politicians, by researchers, by development experts, by international agencies, by donors. Societies are being wired like that. So politics is just one of the other activities in which they get an opportunity to extract from whoever wants their interest. And I think if we want to sort that process, we have to sort the entire value chain. But of course, as Honorable Mapenduzi has said, there are things which you cannot avoid. If you're a candidate and like in the Nrm primaries, the voting cells are more. Like where I was in Rwanda, I think they are close to 250 plus polling stations. But we know that with the EC, they're going to be around 70 because the EC has bigger catchments. Yeah. But you're not going to transport people very far to stand behind a line. So those ones were brought closer to the people. So if you're going to then do that, you know, you then have to pay attention and you're going to have agents at each of those areas. They are going to require transportation. So there are some legitimate concerns, expenditures in an electoral process. And these ones, you see them globally. When people like Trump get onto an election and they have funders, those funders are funding what? They are funding the cost of what it means to deliver an election. It is transportation, it's financing a secretariat, it's financing. So there are those things which are legitimate. What would be illegitimate is inducing people to give a vote to a candidate who actually is not going to do for them anything apart from vote buying. Vote buying is a crime and should not be supported. But I wouldn't expect Nrm Mapenduzi to expect Mr. Otto to run around free of charge without border transport, without printing materials, without... So I think let us take that in perspective. But where I'm really concerned is voter behavior, but also social behavior. Okay. Because if in a context where people are being monetized, everything is being monetized, it becomes problematic to extract politics from that kind of monetization.
Ntungamo had a death.
Had a what?
A death. Someone
Yes.
was killed.
Yeah.
People were injured by shootings there.
Yes.
You remember Luuka.
Yes.
We remember just recently Kawempe North.
Yeah.
How do we have an even playing field? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. First of all, it is sad that
and actually, let me add it to it, that when Honorable Kivumbi and I are contesting, also languaging is put into question.
Yes.
How is that possible? Because you hear insults.
Okay, yeah. So I think that first of all, it is really sad that people have had to lose their life in a process which is supposed to be a democratic process. And it's very sad. No, there's no way that can justify that kind of thing. I am yet to get into the details because where I was, there wasn't much communication and much information. But it is sad that people had to lose their lives. But it is also sad that the stakes of politics has gotten that far that people can get agitated to the issue of the death. I also observed in Rwanda where people actually would attend a rally and challenge each other, maybe at a drinking pub, and others get angry, and actually people were getting injured. But for each case, I think they reported to the DPC. That's what the community told me, that they reported to the DPC. I didn't follow what the DPC did. So I think violence in elections has to be condemned because it's not a good thing. It distorts people's free will, which electoral processes are about. But also that means beyond just condemning, systems should be put in place to ensure that violence is checked. And that's why I told you that for me, where I observed the election, on the last day, it was largely peaceful, but maybe because the police was there. Okay. Probably they knew it was far too rich and the police was there, so there was no... But you can also give it to the people that probably those people, that society was very, very a peaceful society. So I think it is sad, it should not be tolerated, but that calls for more civic education so that people know where their limits are. But it also goes to the whole issue of the discourse of elections, which is of interest to us as researchers in an electoral process. What is the issue? How is it being framed? Is it being framed as you versus us, which then goes into the area of identity? Or are things being framed as national processes, which concern all of us? Okay. Thank you.
Let me read some feedback before I give parting shots here. This comes in from Omoding Habat, an NRM Mukono MP aspirant, who says, Timothy, I do not agree with the Deputy Secretary General. The elections were over 70% unsuccessful. If we look at Mukono municipality, we had received 10 candidates, and we saw 400,000, I think, people voting, but the votes that we saw were 15,092 votes, respective polling stations there, along with many other errors exceeding the number of voters. The whole exercise in Mukono municipality was a sham. It's regrettable that many thanks to the president, who, as usual, is remorseful and has acknowledged that were gross irregularities. The type of leader whom we, as the NRM, need and deserve. I am disappointed with the results. I am ready to petition. I hope you petitioned already. That's Herbert there. Someone else goes on to say, good evening. My name is Emma from Amuria. I am pleased what my MP, Honorable Musa, is saying about the primary results. But as for me, I should say he should come as an independent. Please, we're waiting for you. Come as an independent. Okay? Honorable, you've heard. They have called you to come as an independent. Okay. Thank you for the show. Why would someone in his normal sense count children? This is criminal. It's a shaming for the ruling party, okay? Frank says, about the lining up of children, this is criminal, and the parents of these children should be found to make them stand in the sun, and they made the children stand there too, okay?
What did the parents do?
The NRM primaries is a shame for the country and a lesson to learn from. The system used alone makes it incredibly hard. For instance, how are they going to resolve the complaints of double counting? Because they can only recount people lined up when they went away. They should also have learned from the youth elections when NUP was complaining and they ignored their complaints. Now, Honorable Musa is saying they are dancing. This is Chakala. Okay? Thank you, Timothy, for the show. I should inform you that some of the big fish were intimidating the returning officers to announce them as candidates of their choice, irrespective of the results and the will of the people. This is Akampa Andrew from Bushenyi. Also, help us ask the Honorable Minister, where are the young people that are to replace the old bananas? If the Honorable Minister cannot allow the young people to become part of this, then within the system, it is beginning to fail on its own. Okay? Lastly but not least, please kindly ask the Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi if he was aware that the dirty games he and the so-called NRM played on Bosmic or team in the primaries had posed a long-lasting hate on him by the majority, not only in Laibi, but the entire region. This is Daniel from Ngora district. The usage of registrars was just less than 10%. Why then waste resources on printing these yellow books? All these petitions would not be there. The party policies are not adhered to. And finally, the minister's reasons are not convincing enough. He has been a minister. I expect that he is more popular than the other segments. Didn't he have agents, coordinators? If yes, didn't the children only vote for the colleague? Did the children only vote for the colleague, and why? I request the Honorable Minister to copy the way the gateway of Koboko behaved when she lost. Since his government, because the transfer of the RDC does not mean the whole security committee or office was transferred. I guess the team of the office of the RDC was left blank. This is a person who calls himself a local farmer. Okay. I'm going to start with Professor, Honorable Mapenduzi, Honorable Kivumbi, the Honorable Namayanja, and lastly, the Honorable Minister. Honorable Namayanja, you didn't respond to our question about if the tribunal fails, who does the elevation go to? I will start with you, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much. It has been an interesting discussion, but it's also a time for, it is a time for testing really. Of course, one thing we haven't really gone in much detail is the pronouncement of Honorable Todwong. So what happens if people defy? Do they exit the party? Do they stay in the party? But also I want to say that I think many people have said these primaries were sham, but I would like to see it differently. There are an opportunity, since the NRM is the government in power, the party in power, I think for me it has been an opportunity, or it can be used as an opportunity to see the challenges that are going to affect the national. So it is a very good, like a mock in preparation for the final. And of particular concern, what do you do for communities that are in the park, like where I was observing, it takes 3 hours from there to reach the National Declaration through the park, which has elephants, which has gorillas. So what happens if the deer reforms are being brought and the elephants are in the road? Do you wait those deer reforms to come the following day? You're talking about island communities, and this registrar cannot access a boat that evening when they have finished tallying at the sub-counter, and the boat is going to come the following day. Are those things allowed to arrive and enter the system? And of course, then when they are, if he's to keep them, then how safe are they? So it is about putting logistic support for these people if the process is to be, you know, democracy is an expensive process. Yeah, you either choose not to go there, but if you choose to go there, then you have to commit resources. Okay. And it involves all of that kind of thing. But for me, I think for me, democracy has been tested. It is internal democracy. We are yet to see what the other parties are going to do. whether they will mimic this or for them it's going to be different. So it is still early days, the studying continues. What we normally do after every electoral processes, we publish papers. So we are looking forward to what the publications from this process are going to look like. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And just to comfort you, Justice Biwakama said they have their own system.
Okay, they have their, but maybe last final is to congratulate those who went through, but also to wish well those who are appealing in the tribunal, and to wish the members of the tribunal objectivity and judgment in these processes. You know, they are tough processes, the stakes are high, people are happy and unhappy at the same time, but that is it. Thank you.
Honorable Mapenduzi.
I'll start with the message you read from a viewer. First, I was not contesting for a regional position. So if the viewer is saying, you know, it's the region, and I think that's, I was contesting for Badege Laibi division parliamentary position as the flag bearer. Number two, go to Badege Laibi division and find out what my voters think, because I am their member of parliament. They know my method of work, they know what we are doing, and we have a long way to go. We will continue doing what we are doing. The other thing that I will say is, you see, it's paradoxical that the complaints are coming more from the opposition. I saw Honorable Dongauto recording denouncing the result for Badege Laibi division, and I said, now look at this. It's not NRM, it's so bitter. And then I saw Honorable Gilbert Lanyoso recording himself, saying, you know, the election is, and I said, look, this is interesting. But you know, we need to respect that an internal exercise is an internal exercise, and when it's conducted, if there are people who are aggrieved, there are mechanisms to address them, like she has explained. So to me, the most important thing is, when you go in such an election, let me give you this example. I have seen candidates who go to campaign in the market. For example, in Gulu, Badege Laibe, one of the candidates was campaigning in a market that is not in Badege Laibe. And then there are people who believe in crowd. You go to a place without knowing even how many people are on the yellow book. It requires a lot of analysis and planning, and it's not just noise making and running around and trying to excite people. When you are participating in a primary election, it takes a lot of planning and strategy and analysis than even in the general election. Okay. But I would like to assure you that and for some of us who believe in systems and rules and all that, this is an exercise that shouldn't tear the party to pieces. And so what is important is for the party members to reorganize themselves, have internal discussion, and prepare for the main one. And I can assure you, for Gulu City, NRM will sweep it.
Honorable Kivumbi.
Let's go for the low-hanging fruits. For a ruling party to go for a pre-industrial method of deciding leadership.
You mean the lining up?
The lining up does not even meet the minimum criteria that defines a free and fair election, even in our constitutional context. So it speaks volume of its own, that's what the ruling party decided to do. It has an element, it encourages bribery, because if I've given you money, I'm able to see you on the line. Two, it has an element of mob justice. Once we have been those lines, once your line is a bit short, people abandon. Abandon and join. People want to be part of a winning line. Now, the moment you are like, for a start, he has been saying, I've heard stories that people would wait for the other village to finish voting, and they walk to this village, and they vote again. I mean, the whole notion, I think, of this primitive method of lining up should be discounted. And I think me and Mapenduzi, if we make it in the next parliament, and we should amend that law. For any political party, as a minimum, should go for a secret ballot. Because that's a minimum qualification of a tenet of democracy. We shouldn't go below that. It's very primitive that NRM went for that method of voting. It had its own merits. They're saying it's cheap, it's whatever, but the demerits, it's long discounted by civilized. The other thing is, how do we get our leaders across political divide? How do we get our leaders? Through violence, organizing what we call a galley, because now every leader, literally who is a serious candidate, now he has almost a militia. How do we move away from that? How do we move away from that? Because it started with the Chiboko Squad, with the Kalangala Action Plan, and people learned along the way, said, oh, wait, if we are going to do this, we are going to survive, we must adopt. People adopted and coped. For me, that is very fundamental. The other thing is, how do we move away from here, the country? I think along the key actors, we must interrogate a question that touched. How do we ensure a post-Museveni Uganda that is at ease with itself, peaceful and prosperous? How do we secure that? And this difficult conversation must start. And I hear now all the worries, and the other last part on the short, for as long as the economy performs poor and public service looks to be paying more than what you earn from the general public, there will always be a do or die. So it's also a question of the economy. For as long as the salaries, out there are 2 million, 4 million, 5 million, even 10 million, and people hear that this other side, it is 30, 40, it becomes a do or die. The reality when you go in is very different, because when you go with the cycle of the people who are demanding much more, that's why my sister here did 2 terms and said, to hell with it. And you can see she's at ease and at peace. She's looking at the cherry and says, this one here.
Thank you, Honorable. Let me come to Honorable Namayanja. Your parting shot.
First of all, I just wanted to comment on this demeaning statements by my brother Muwanga about NRM, how it is rotten, and the national chairman. And I can say, of course, you don't expect something different. I don't expect him to clap hands for him or for NRM. But I can say that even within these other political parties, we also had, and it has been said before, like Honorable Mapenduzi alluded to it, where people were saying they paid 200, 400, 300 million shillings to get a ticket. Recently, I was watching a clip by Honorable Latif Sebagala about how senior members in the party are kind of fighting from within and trying to outsmart the other during the primaries process and everything. But I want to dare these other parties that call our election a sham to conduct a national election. Because a national election, where I agree with the professor, in the last elections of 2021, the polling stations for the Independent Electoral Commission were 34,344. And you are comparing with NRM, with all its human, financial, logistical, and other resources. You are comparing with 72,000 polling stations. So even when we go through these processes at a strategic, operational, and tactical levels, as a party, we are learning the lessons. We are picking on the positive processes that we undertake, and we learn, and we are creating a level of cadreship within the party at all those 3 levels. And we certainly don't believe that any other party can conduct it and then dare call the NRM a sham election, because those cases that we are talking about are just a small fraction. Yes, they affect people, and even, by the way, in the general elections, the turnout, the turnover of members of parliament is always very, very high across the political divide. So for us, and when the president, when you say that there was a vote of no confidence by the ministers who chose to go independent, when you say it was selfish for the president to pick on an independent to be a vice president, that's the level of confidence and also conviction that you can work with people that you may not agree with or that may not be in line, because, there are people from different political parties, of FDC, of DP, of UPC, that we are working with in government. And that's the level of inclusivity that is being portrayed by the National Resistance Movement, and that we would love to see elsewhere. Otherwise, you talked about the issue of the tribunal if it fails. I want to say that if the tribunal cannot fail to take a decision, it can take a decision, and which may be, rejected by one party or the other, and if that one rejects it, of course we go with the decision of the tribunal. But just like in other courts, what happens is that they reach a level, even with parliament, they no longer go beyond the Court of Appeal. But where we realize that we failed as a party to come up with a candidate, like I said in the beginning, we can decide not to have a candidate in that case. Otherwise, I agree with the members here that it is a process for us to build. Okay. They gave the example of the United Kingdom. How many centuries has it taken them to reach where they are? These processes that we are going through, I want to believe they did go through them. And it takes all of us, all political parties, to play a part in ensuring that we build our democracy, starting with internal democracy, because we believe if there is internal democracy, then democracy at national level is very possible.
Thank you very much. Lastly, the Honorable Minister.
First of all, thank you again for all the issues that have been raised. I'll take a note, but one thing is very clear. I wanted my panelists here and the country to know that many of us stand on very strong principles. For example, I've received 2 delegations, and they would be totally different and divergent approaches to how we should manage leadership. One group came and told me, Mr. Minister, when you come back, because they think I will come back, we want you to continue the way you have been running some of your projects that supplement government interventions. But one group, and that group surprised me, even with some elites in it, came and told me, Mr. Minister, if you are going to do a project of 30, 40 million, why do you waste such money? Why don't you buy plates? Because you do a project of 30 million, and somebody, Muwanga Kivumbi, comes and buys plates of 600,000. And is very popular among the local people. I want to say it on television. I will never come that low. I have a legacy that I will want to leave behind, that while he was serving, this was what he was able to do, even many years when I'm out of office. Okay. So the NRM is a strong party. Particularly, the leadership is very clear. The direction is seen. We only want to see how we can strengthen the different units that make the system, because those units are extremely critical. So the units have a challenge for now. This is one which is glaring. But I don't want, I have seen some of my colleagues on television blaming individuals. I've refused to blame directly big individuals, that because like Honorable Namayanja said, and I think the professor, if, for example, the leadership of the Electoral Commission was here, there are only about 5, 6. They can't be in my constituency alone. There are 320 villages. So they couldn't have been in all the 320 villages. So the future is bright. We will reorganize. I am sure the NRM will carry the day. We will reorganize. Honorable Namayanja, if you see some of these MPs who didn't stand coming, one of them told me, is in the bus, but is running ahead first to board the bus in the town ahead of us. So it is like leaving Soroti and then you go and board the bus in Kumi when it is coming here. You still will arrive in Kampala when you're in the bus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Someone sends Julius Okopa from Amuria, says the election in Amuria was a joke. The secondary school students in Amuria SS, Amuria High, Kojo, Seed, and they had children voting. It was a mockery, and we're waiting for the minister to come and stand as an independent on the ballot. But also I have a message here that comes in from Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, who says, experience and sacrifice, the foundation for leadership in the NRM High Command. And he gives a perithro of things there. He says the brain and the central nervous system is sick, that will be responsible for the things that are there, and also greater influence that is there. Why experience matters? Experience matters in the context. It's not simply about how long you have been a member of the party. It's tested on loyalty, institutional memory, demonstrated in capacity. He goes on to talk about leaders raising through SEC, must have grassroots mobilization, institutional track, Pan-Africanism, and he also goes on to talk about the sacrifices that are made. And finally, he says, the future of the NRM depends on the leaders who have walked the long road, paid the price, emerged only from experience, but also committed to the mission. Movement remains relevant, resilient, revolutionary in the years ahead. Okay. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much. We appreciate, and I see Honorable Kivumbi.
It should be ladies and gentlemen.
A researcher. I've looked at some figures, projected unit costs of a vote in the coming election, averaging 40,000. It's something that shouldn't be. We know what I'm talking about. The unit cost of a vote in the coming election is projected to average 40,000.
We'll discuss that another day.
40,000 shillings?
Per vote.
Per vote.
That means from a poster to everything, to campaign. By the time you get that vote, a unity vote.
That is after nominations?
Yeah, it's even after nominations. It's projected after nominations.
If that number...
If you factor in the party primary, it will be quite high. And it's...
Democrats are not cheap.
No, it shouldn't be that. It's absolutely abnormal.
What your numbers are saying is about 800 billion shillings. But we'll end with this quote. A politician divides mankind in two categories. Tools and enemies. Good morning.
In a party primary.
Yo, Gerard, let me ask you, and be honest, right? Brutally honest, because on this show we don't lie, right? Don't even look, don't even mind that she's here. We can put a pillow on the side. What was your very first assumption about her kind of fashion?
It's more than the fashion. It's when you see a whole thing of another person, because we are talking here about what you do, what she does, everything. But at the end, is to find a partner that you both push each other forward and you understand each other. When I say A, she's thinking A. When she says B, I'm thinking B. That's the main point. About the fashion, I thought, all what is Ugandan and what is it comes from here, always it calls my attention.
It's very crucial to have that someone that shares the same vision as you, so that when you're going this side, they tell you, hey, we are supposed to go straight. You're going left, you're going right, we're supposed to go straight.
Ukrainian elites. We are talking about billions of euros and of dollars. And finally, the Zelensky regime is facing some scrutiny, not only from the people, from his own people, who until now, they were the ones that felt that to a certain extent they were represented by Volodymyr Zelensky, but now they are open to at least let him fall and maybe be replaced by somebody else who could be closer from the United States or even from the European Union. We are witnessing some kind of criticism also from the Western side, especially because not only the European Union, but also because the United States, they are pretty open to let Volodymyr Zelensky fall and be replaced by somebody else who could be a fresh face and maybe, to a certain extent, be willing to finally accept to make truce and to reach some kind of agreement with Russia and to accept to make some kind of concession, especially when related with the territory. What's presently happening in Ukraine is absolutely chaos. People in Ukraine, they are against the Zelensky regime. They have been trying to demonstrate in this sense. The problem is that finally they feel some kind of support from the West. Finally, the West is also voicing out their concerns about the fight against not only corruption, but also they are witnessing and they are seeing that Volodymyr Zelensky, he doesn't want to reach peace, at least in a peaceful way. What he wants is to insist and push Russia to this conflict, and maybe, in case Volodymyr Zelensky can, he wants to try to push Russia into a war, to drag Russia and the United States to the same war. So this cannot happen, and the United States, they are looking at this, and they are witnessing what Zelensky is trying to do. So that's why we are seeing, to a certain extent, not only the United States, but also the European Union stepping out of the full support they have been expressing to President Zelensky.
So how do you see this public discontent in Ukraine progressing? Because these are the first widespread protests in Ukraine we've seen in 3 years. And there's a lot for them to be unhappy about, not just this law limiting the anti-corruption bureaus, but the aggressive military drafting, young men being snatched off the streets and being sent to the front lines. And of course, Ukraine is losing ground by the day. And then Ukraine comes to the negotiating table with Russia, and they have no negotiating in them. They just have we want a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky. We want an unconditional ceasefire right now. They don't even want to negotiate. So do you think the people will continue to protest?
I think people will continue to protest at least until either Zelensky changes his stance towards this anti-corruption institutions law that's going to enter into force really soon, or either until Zelensky will be replaced. Because what we witness every day, and we can see not only on social media, but on many other accounts, is daily videos from nationwide protests in Ukraine of people who are trying to be drafted by the military institutions of Ukraine. But they resist because they don't believe in this fight, in this war that presently Ukraine is trying to wage against Russia. Why all this resistance, especially when we look at cities like Odessa? Odessa is mostly identified with Russia. The same for Kharkov. So why are not only Kiev, but also Lvov, people especially from those areas, that region of Lvov, trying to push all the other Ukraine that's still left to keep fighting in a lost war? So people are losing their patience, and finally they are also losing their minds against the Ukrainian institutions. And this is what we have in the end. Even the last fight, for example, now we are going to witness the fight for Krasnoarmeysk, the Pokrovsk, for many other people who knows it for this name as well. What we have been witnessing was, until weeks ago, Zelensky was trying to defend a view according to which he had a lot of people there defending the city. He had also a lot of a different model of defense. But in the end, what we are witnessing is it's almost about to fall, this huge city, which has a significant importance, even for on a strategic perspective. And people look at this, people see this. The problem is that people never found a common cause to all of them in order to keep resisting and keep fighting. And this is not the main difference.
Why do you think Ukraine is so